The new world record is 21 hours, 39 minutes, 21 seconds. Let me remind you how fast this is. Only 2 men in the history of Ultraman Canada have ever gone faster. Simon Cochran at 20 hours, 2 minutes and 18 seconds, and Dave Matheson at 21:37:27. Look at that, less than 2 minutes separating Dave Matheson's very best. And remember, he's been the world's best Masters triathlete. World Championship which is held. It's stunning.
You're listening to 515, the Ultra Podcast, the show that invites you into the lives of people who make up the Ultra family. Here's your host for these conversations, Larry Ryan.
Thanks, MJ. Well, we've made it into November, and that means that the annual Ultraman World Championships is just around the corner. Today's guest will be attending her first Ultraman in Hawaii, but she is more than ready, as you just heard Steve King announce in the opening. Today's guest started her Ironman career in 2008 and went pro in 2013. She has podiumed at various triathlon distances no less than 20 times, and she's qualified for the Ironman World Championships 7 times. Usually finishing her Ironman races with low 9-hour times, last year she was able to cross that 9-hour mark at Ironman Florida with a time of 8:54:14. The cycling discipline is certainly her strength, and she's been crushing records in many of the races that she's participated in. So it's no surprise that in an event that has 420 kilometers of cycling, she was also able to set a new women's world record in Penticton this summer at Ultraman Canada. The first woman to go under 22 hours in a 5:15 race in a time of 21:39:32. Joining me today from her home in Penticton is Jen Annett. Welcome to 515.
Thank you.
Now, did I also read this correctly? Did you at one time hold the fastest Ironman bike time for females?
I did. Back in 2018, I broke the Ironman bike course record or bike overall record at Ironman Texas. It ended up being asterisked after that because the course was actually 3 kilometers short. That being said, on the pace that I had, if you did the math, I still would have held the record at that point. Since then, no surprise, Daniela definitely beat that record, and I believe there's been a couple of others that have been really close to that. But yes, I did hold that for a small amount of time. So
well, that's excellent. Well, I'm sure you'll hold this new one for a while as well.
I hope so.
As I said in the opening, you are actually from Penticton, so it's kind of a hometown race for you. And obviously, everybody knows the Ironman Penticton, and we had the last one this year in 2024. You raced in that. You came 5th in the women's division. It was a shortened race due to the fact that they weren't able to do the swim because it was so cold in the water. Can you tell me a little bit about your final Ironman Canada and what the race has meant to you over the years as a resident of Penticton and a pro triathlete?
Well, Ironman Canada is what totally kicked off triathlon for me back in 2008. Actually, it would have started a couple years prior to that when we moved to Penticton. I only moved from Kona, which is not even an hour north of us, and never heard of Ironman before, and went down and watched it, and was so inspired. I'm like, I don't even know anybody here, and just thought this was like just an amazing thing. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I want to do this. So did it in 2008 and qualified for World Championships, my first Ironman. And that's what kind of like kicked it all off. I'm like, wow, like,
this is so easy.
Well, no, not easy. Not easy. I wish I could say that, but so it was kind of like the realization that I'd found something that I was actually good at, which I think in a way is something that I was lacking in my life at that point. So I got hooked on that and raced 8, 9, 10 in Penticton. My husband finally decided he'd lived it long enough, so he raced 2011.
Okay.
I stuck to the cheering side, had my son in 2012, and then was all set to go back in 2013 and hopefully go back to Hawaii. But unfortunately, the city cut the contract with Ironman at that point, and Challenge came in. So I was, disappointed in that, but supported Challenge at the same time. And once again, you can't pass up racing local. It's such an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And then, when they announced it was coming back in 2019, was the announcement for 2020. I was super stoked. I'm like, awesome, I finally get to race. Hopefully it's a pro race. And that was kind of the thing, is I'm like, I want to race here as a pro, hopefully get that big W. But then obviously things happened through COVID and forest fires and everything. So was very happy that I was able to actually race this year. Couldn't pass that up. Timing, not overly great, being only 4 weeks out from Ultraman. I knew it was, like, probably shouldn't race, physically speaking, but I'm like, I can't not race. Even if I have a bad day, it's going to be a great day. And that was just kind of my mentality going into that day. I'm like, I really wanted that hometown win, but realistically, the body was just not in the right place to be racing that. The swim being canceled, that was honestly crazy for Penticton. 2 days prior to the race, it was borderline a non-wetsuit swim for the pros. That's how warm the water was. When they announced that it had flipped, like Okanagan Lake will do that. Depending on the windstorms that we get, it's known to just flip overnight.
Yeah.
I was shocked to hear what the water temp was. I think it was 14, something like that. So as much as I was disappointed that the swim was canceled, I'm not disappointed, because I don't think I personally would have survived the swim at all. I can't do cold water anymore. So it made for an interesting start to the race. I've never had a canceled swim in a race before, so that was a first for me.
Did they put you off in waves? Is that how they did it?
Yeah, so for us, we had to draw numbers, so it was completely random.
Okay.
They just put numbers in a hat, and we pulled a number, and that was the position that you started, and then we just went every 30 seconds.
Yeah.
They let one of us go. So it definitely changed it in the sense that, especially on the run, you really actually had no idea what place you were in based on if there was somebody that started 5 or 6 minutes behind you. They could actually have been ahead of you.
Right. Yeah.
So mentally it was like, okay, like, did she start behind me? Did she, like, how far behind is she? Like, trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Definitely added something different to it. But overall it was a great day.
Yeah. And for people that maybe don't know, the Ironman Canada is now moving to Ottawa. Will you move on to Ottawa with it, or is Ottawa a little too far away based on your current career?
No, not necessarily. I raced Mount Tremblant back in 2022, I believe it was, and loved it there. It was such an amazing race. So if I could stay within Canada, that makes it even easier for me, to be honest.
Yeah.
It would be a really neat experience. I've heard some really positive things from people that I know that live out on that side, that they're like, it's a great venue. It's going to be really good. So,
yeah. Well, it is definitely a beautiful part of our country. So hopefully it does hold up and keep the people coming into Canada to race. I
really hope so, because there's not much left in Canada for Ironman races, really. Like, even for 70.3s, we're like kind of falling off the map a little bit, and it's quite sad to say that. So I would really, really like to see something successful stay in Canada.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to your Ultraman Canada race, the big one this year, the one that you made your focus, that you announced you were going to finally take the plunge. You've been watching it in town for a number of years. What was it about this year in particular that you were like, okay, this is the year I'm going to do it?
Honestly, like last season, I ended up on a really like negative mental note. Just really frustrated with, I didn't have a terrible season, but it was really the realization that I could not make a living doing this sport anymore. And I put way too much financial pressure on myself to do well at races, that it was just to the point where I was like, I just need to make a good paycheck. Like that's all I'm here for. And I'm like, I'm not even enjoying doing this right now. I'm just trying to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And once I finished my last race, I'm like, this is not why I started doing this sport. I did this sport because I loved it. I felt great about it. I loved everything about it. And that mentally is not where I'm at right now. So kind of through the off season, I decided that I'm like, you know what? Like I need to step back. I'm going to work full time. I need to step up that financial side for my family.
Right.
And bring the love of the sport back into my life. So that's why I didn't really race pro much this year, was just because I needed that pressure break mentally.
Right.
So we're like, you know what? Like, let's just race a couple of local races. I did a back-to-back Olympic one day, half iron the next day, local race here just for fun. Like, I know it sounds stupid for fun, but like just for something different, right? And it was like, it was no pressure.
Yeah.
It was something different to do, and I had fun doing it. And Ultraman has kind of always been on the bucket list, minus wrapping my head around a double marathon in one day. I think that was like the one biggest deterrent. But I'm really good friends with Dave Matheson, who held the record here for a number of years. And I've watched him race here, and I'm like, you know what? Like, this is just really cool. And if I don't just do it now, I'm probably just never going to do it. So why not just wrap this in, check that off the bucket list, and just do it. Just go have fun.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, there are so many people in the local community that I'm sure you know and have watched race and have talked about it, and you know what it's all about, and it's on your home course. And if you're taking that time to have that mental break from the pro races, there's probably nothing better than the ohana of an Ultraman race. It's completely different.
It is, and it exceeded any expectation that I would have ever had of that race. Yeah, I mean, I had no excuse. It is in my backyard, right? I'm like, I got to sleep in my bed for I would say 2 out of the 3 of the nights, but like, yeah, there was only one night that I didn't get to sleep in my own bed. Not many people are fortunate to have that.
Right.
The whole experience was unbelievable, and it gave especially my family, a chance to actually be a part of it, if not even a bigger part of it than me just doing it.
Yeah.
You know, just not just seeing me train, being on the sidelines cheering, and
waiting on that one part
line,
of the road for you to come by on your bike, and then all right.
Yeah, exactly. But like my success completely relied on them.
Right.
And my whole goal going into this is I'm just doing this for the experience.
Yeah.
I just want to go and have fun, but I also want my crew to have fun. And that was so important to me. I'm like, I don't want you guys stressed out. I've been doing this for so many years. You don't need to stress out. I just want you to have fun. I want us all to have a fun weekend.
Yeah.
And it was that and so much more.
Yeah. And you have one young son as well. Was he part of your crew? He
was, yes.
Yeah. What's his name? What's his age?
Nixon, and he's 12.
12. Okay. So yeah, that's a good age to be out there and running around and helping out and filling bottles and stuff. Was he able to
Yeah,
keep his energy up?
he was my main bottle passer offer
Yeah.
on the bike and ran with me for a little bit on the run.
Oh,
And
great.
yeah, he did a really, really good job. He even surprised me with a inflatable T-Rex costume on the run. It was great.
Okay.
Yeah, that was at about like the 65K mark into the run when it was like the super long 6 kilometer uphill. Yeah.
And you
So
keep
I
thinking, you
needed
go up
something
the
like
hill
that.
and it's like, oh, I think I'm at the top. And then there's another little piece of the hill and you think you're at the top. And yeah.
It was very much that, but I know that road really well, so I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to share with the listeners some of the times that you had, because this is a new world record time. So if you'll indulge me in talking about some of your times for a second here. You basically shattered the world record. As I said, your total time was 21:39:32, and this was breaking the previous record of Dee Griesbauer, who set it in Ultraman, Florida in 2020 by just over an hour. So in this world, you shattered that record. And I think now, other than the swim at Ultraman Canada, I think you hold all of the race records at that event, just like Simon Cochran did the year before, came in and set all of the records except for the swim, which still belongs to Jordan Bryden.
Yes.
So your swim time was a 2:51:18, and you were first out of the water. Your bike ride on day one was 4 hours, 9 minutes, 35 seconds, which was a record. And your total time for the day was 7:53, which was about a half hour better than Kate Bevilacqua's previous record. On day two, you had a time of 7 hours and 52 minutes, 27 seconds, another record, giving you a bike total of 12:02:02. You almost had your bike total down in the 11s. That's amazing.
And you know what? I would have had it if I hadn't had a little mishap on day one too. So
What was your mishap?
I hit a pothole on one of the rollers that has been there since I think I have started racing. And it was just, they had some construction going on and I tried to deke around a construction sign, but there was a car. So I ended up hitting this pothole and I lost all of my flat repair stuff and my bottle cages broke behind my seat.
Yeah.
So I was stuck on the side of the road for probably only like 5 minutes. Thankfully, my crew was like right behind me.
That's great. Yeah.
Kind of rigged it all back up together. There's my kid running up the highway trying to find all of my flat repair stuff. So yeah, it would have been just under that, but that's okay. It is what it is. That was the only like bad thing that happened. It wasn't even that bad.
Yeah, that's a great race then. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that actually gave you the third fastest combined bike time ever. So ahead of you is Simon Cochran, Stephen Stafford, and then you got just ahead of Dave Matheson. So I bet you that made you feel pretty good.
Well, we're very similar in strength other than the swim. So
yeah. So that gave a 2-day total of 14 hours, 53 minutes, and 20 seconds, another record that you took away from Kate. And your run time on day 3 was quite impressive at 6 hours, 46 minutes, and 1 second, another record. So as I said, your total time, 21:39:21, the new world record. How does it feel to be a world record holder in an event? I mean, you've been racing triathlon a long time. You must have been hoping for a great time, but could you have imagined that you were going to go world record time?
No. That wasn't even on the radar, to be honest. I didn't even know what the world record was. I was going for a course record.
Okay.
If everything went well, that should be attainable, or like a women's course record, of course. I don't think anybody will come close to Simon ever.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't even aware of the world record situation until about 16K left into the run. or left in the run. And my run pacer, which is a good friend of mine, couldn't keep her mouth shut.
Time to put the pressure on.
And
who was that? Who was your
like,
run pacer?
I had 3 of them, actually. So Tracy Clark and Dave Matheson.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother actually ended up surprising me and jumping out and running with me. So it was actually great because they just swapped off every 5K. So I had a different personality every 5 kilometers.
Oh yeah.
So it actually made it go by really fast. But yeah, Tracy we were talking about, I don't know what we were talking about. I think Dave came up actually quite often in conversation. And she was just like, "You are going to make history." I'm like, "Hey, what are you talking about?" She's like, "You're going to break the world record." I'm like, "Well, don't tell me that now." Like, I had no idea, but I feel like 16 kilometers is a long way to run, right?
Yeah.
So I was mind blown by that. Like I said, it wasn't even on the radar, and I really had no idea that was even a possibility.
Okay. Wow. Well, that's a fun surprise to have, and I'm sure Steve King must have had a great call for you when you came across the line.
Yes, he did. Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple really good finish line videos where you can listen to him, and yeah.
Who's not only going to bust apart the overall record in terms of the winning, this is going to be a world best. Absolutely magnificent time. It is going to be a brand new run record. We thought that was untouchable. That record was 6:59.33. She's currently at 6:45. Please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, the greatest Ultraman triathlete the world has ever seen. Absolutely. Daniela Ryf, along with her husband and son, Jason, and Nixon, and her team. We've got Chris there, we've got Shelley and Gary there, we've got Tina, Dave, absolutely magnificent. And Tracy and Bob and Sandy, what a team. And she meets up with her parents, Lorna and Gavin. We're going to give you these official splits here in a moment.
So you had Dave Matheson helping pace you, and your time actually sandwiched between 2 of his total times. So you're now the 3rd fastest ever Ultraman Canada finisher between after Simon and Dave, and before Dave again. So
yeah.
was he really proud to be helping you to push that, or was he like, "Hey, I'm going to kick your heel out here and slow you down a little bit"?
No. Dave's a really good friend of mine, and while we may like compete, quote unquote, compete with each other, it was amazing to have him out there. Mm-hmm. So no, I don't think there was any bad going on.
Yeah,
I would like to say that he was really proud of it. So
yeah,
I mean, anything just to be a part of that, I'm happy that he wanted to be a part of that. So. Mm-hmm.
And you have some other local help as well too, right? Tell us about your coach.
Yeah. So Johnny has been coaching me since 2015. I brought him on, and it's been working out really well. We're still working together. Yeah. He's been a great coach. Just started off with basically with a swim squad, and then took him on full time. And it's not that I couldn't self-coach, but I don't need somebody to push me. I just needed somebody to see things in me that I couldn't see. Oh yeah. Which is definitely where he came into play. He's also got a family, so he understands that training family balance, which I think can get lost in coaching sometimes. Obviously depends on the coach, but I needed somebody that understood that I needed that balance there, that family for me always comes first. So while my situation may not be ideal compared to other pros, I still wanted to make it work as best as I could. So it's been great, and he's here locally, so there's no hiding.
Yeah. You can just come knock on your door. It's not like you have to
Yeah,
meet over
pretty
the
much.
internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of the balance in the family, did I see on your Instagram or Facebook that you had gone camping with your family? I think it was maybe before or after Ultraman, and you had the trainer set up at the campsite. Is that right?
Yeah, that one was that I've done that lots actually. That was after Ironman Canada, so that was in September.
Okay.
Yeah, we just make it work. We do a ton of camping, and it's often in places where there isn't any pavement.
Mhm.
I can definitely drive to access pavement, but we've had actually in September we had a few really cold nights. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll just set the trainer up. I actually trained last year for Ironman Texas. I did my longest ride inside my trailer on Easter weekend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I know it sounds crazy and I get a lot of weird looks from people in the campground that are really have no idea what I do,
Yeah.
but it makes for a good story and yeah, I just make it work.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a great way to keep the balance. Hello, listener. I love getting your feedback and suggestions for the podcast. Keep them coming at 515ultraman@gmail.com. For those that want to help me promote the show, I suggest that you tell a friend to listen to. Word of mouth is a great way for podcasts to get new listeners. And if you don't mind publishing your feelings, a free way to support the show is by leaving a 5-star rating and review on your podcast app. It's a chance to tell me what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it too. Finally, if you're so inclined, you can show your appreciation for my work by clicking the support link at the bottom of the show notes to go to my Buy Me a Coffee page. Thanks for all of your feedback and support. Now back to the show. I know that people listening are always looking for race tips on how to complete or compete at a 5:15 race. So in this next segment, I asked Jen about her nutrition plan. And for those of you that like getting into the nitty-gritty of numbers, she shares them all. A lot of the people that listen to the podcast, they're doing it to get some tips from pros like you on how to race. Not that everybody's going to race the way you race, but tips are tips, and some people, borrow here and there. I saw that you use Precision Nutrition, and that they posted a case study on their website about your nutrition for this race. So maybe you can just run through some of the things that you did for your nutrition for the race. And just how did you decide what it was going to be? Was that with Johnny's influence? Was that with someone from Precision talking you through it, or your own, just this is what I've been doing for years, and this is how I will approach the Ultraman when I go from Ironman to Ultraman? Give us a little feedback on how that all came about.
It's always $1 million question, right? Well, nutrition is such like a personal thing. It's definitely not a one size fits all, and gone are the days of Gatorade and Power Gels. That's pretty much all you had, right? Like you didn't have much to choose from, and there's so many different products out there. I have used a variety of different products over the years and just got on with Precision last year.
Okay.
And love their stuff. There's a lot of research now with the whole glucose, fructose combination.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, everything was just glucose, right?
Yeah.
So fructose is digested through a different channel than glucose.
Right.
So what it does is it allows you to take in more carbohydrates per hour without stressing the digestive system out. So gone are the days of the like typical quote unquote 60 grams of carbs an hour is the max you can take in because that's all your body can digest. Now you can tap into that fructose channel and take in I take in 90 to 100, closer. I try to stick closer to the 100 grams an hour. And it's worked really, really well. That's how Precision has their stuff set up, is it's just glucose fructose combination. So I believe in simple is the best way to go. Keeping everything as simple as possible. It just leaves way less room for error. So doing this whole like half a bar every half an hour, a gel every 15 minutes, some water every 10 minutes, a sip of sports drink every like whatever.
Yeah.
I just do everything for the bike is all concentrated in bottles. So I use their like carb mix, and then they have a carb plus sodium mix. So I get all my electrolytes in there. So in a 1 liter bottle, I'll put 1,000 to 1,200 calories with all of my electrolytes as well in there. So every 20 minutes, I take some of that. I know how long a bottle is going to last me. So if I've got a 6-hour ride, I've got 2 bottles. One bottle is going to be 3 hours. So at an hour and a half, I need to be halfway done that. So I'm constantly just keeping tabs on that while I'm drinking it, and then washing it down with water. So really the only thing that I ever pick up during a race is water. I just make sure that I'm taking in enough. I have a very high sweat rate, so I need to be replenishing that fluid.
Right.
So that is all I do for the bike, are these super bottles, fuel and electrolytes and water.
And then for Ultraman, because you have someone to be able to pass you off a nice cold icy one whenever you want, basically, did you change the amount you were putting in your bottles, or how did you approach it with the Ultraman race?
Honestly, I just stuck to the same thing that I always stick to.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't fix it if it ain't broke. In my opinion, not that I don't trust my crew at all. I 100% trust them, but like my nutrition is in my hands. So I think the only thing I ever had them pass off during the bike was I had my son pass me off a Red Bull at like 200K into the second day bike, just because I'm like, all right, got this like long 35-kilometer climb. Like I need a little kick. But other than that, it was just water they were passing off to me every 30 minutes or so.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I just got a new bottle of water, and then my nutrition, I just kept on my bike. So just stuck with the same thing. Actually, no, you know what? I'm going to take that back. They did pass me my second bottle at like a halfway mark. So I didn't have to weigh my bike down with 2 full bottles of nutrition. But that being said, in the whole picture, nothing really changed. I just like to keep things in my own hands as much as possible.
Yeah.
I've just been doing this for so many years and do so much training by myself that I rely on myself for everything. So yeah, that's basically how I do the bike.
Yeah. And I guess, sorry, the great thing about the pace that you're racing at is you're not really going longer than your Ironman races. So your body's used to it. You know what you're doing. Someone who's doing Ultraman and pushing that 12-hour time limit each day, they might have to approach this a little bit differently, particularly, with Canada being as hot as it is. I know it wasn't as hot this year. Do you think that like you would adjust the sodium intake if you were an athlete out there longer than what you were on the road for?
I mean, that's honestly a really individual question. What I always say is people need to figure out their sweat rate, and use that as a base. I know, like I said, I'm a heavy sweater, so I go through kind of like a series of before and after weigh-ins to try to figure out kind of the average amount of fluid that I lose, and then play around with sodium amounts. I know, like, for the last, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years, I've been doing the same thing and it's worked. So I haven't changed it in terms of the amount of sodium that I take in. The one thing that I did change a few years ago is because I used to be terrible in hot conditions, was I didn't actually realize how much I was sweating. And once I upped my fluid intake, it made it all the difference. I would say figure out your sweat rate first, but typically a person that's slower can digest more
Right.
than somebody who's working a lot harder. It's just the digestive system can digest that a lot easier. But I wouldn't say it should really change anything. I think that sometimes athletes that are out there for longer can sometimes lose focus on taking in their nutrition and perhaps get sidetracked.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing is just making sure that you stick to your plan and don't waver away from that.
And that you have a good crew that's going to be counting the numbers for you.
And a plan B.
Yeah.
Like I had a plan B if my nutrition decided to go sideways, if all of a sudden my body was like, you know what, I'm done with this. I don't want this. So I had a plan B because I would rather have a plan B and still have calories coming in than nothing at all.
And trying to make it up on the spot or yeah.
And I've had to do that in Ironman races and you just make it work. But I mean, if you want, I could briefly just read off my summary of what I took during the swim, bike, run.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah. So this is for Ultraman, obviously. So swim, pre-swim, I had a bottle with 250 calories of the precision carb mix with the sodium in it, and water, and then a gel 15 minutes pre-start. And that's honestly typical of any race that I do. That's what I always do. No different for Ultraman. Difference in Ultraman swim, obviously 10 kilometers. It's not a hour or less type event.
Right.
So I stopped every 30 minutes and took a gel with part of a bottle of carbon electrolyte drink. So I was aiming for like 300 calories or so an hour in the swim. That was a little bit of an unknown zone for me because I don't typically take in any nutrition when I'm swimming.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure I was getting enough to feel okay getting out of the water and onto the bike, but didn't want to end up with some sort of gut issue either. Yeah. But that worked out really well. So the total, actually, I'm going to take that back. Total amount was, this is why I wrote it down. It was 360 calories an hour, which is 90 grams of carbs, and 500 milligrams of sodium an hour, which is really on the low side for me for sodium. But it did work. The bike, I did 400 calories an hour and 1,200 milligrams of sodium an hour. So that's pretty typical for me as well. That was split between 2 bottles and then 2 bottles of water an hour on top of that. Day 2 of the bike was exactly the same thing, plus the 200K mark, just to give me a little bit of something different.
Get out of Princeton and get up the hill.
Yeah, exactly, right? And then the run was a little different. I did 1 gel every 20 minutes with 2 electrolyte capsules. So I was taking 500 milligrams of sodium with a gel every 20 minutes, which worked out to obviously 1,500 milligrams of sodium an hour. And I did basically 2 uncaffeinated gels, 1 caffeinated, 2 uncaffeinated, 1 caffeinated. It's kind of how
throughout the whole day, you didn't like hold off on it or, yeah.
No, well, that's just kind of how I decided to do it. I'm like, well, why not, right? And I do really well with caffeine. I think I was born with coffee in my blood, so. And then at the halfway point, I actually switched to 1 gel every half an hour, all uncaffeinated, because I was doing Red Bull every 20 minutes or so. Not a full can.
Yeah, like a shot.
They dumped it in like a shot, basically, like what you would get at an aid station. So I was alternating water with Red Bull. So I was picking up those extra calories and sugar with the Red Bull and didn't want to overload my system.
Yeah.
Ended up being 100 grams of carbs an hour and then the 1,500 milligrams of sodium. And that was basically how my like in-race nutrition went. My like post-race every day was chicken, rice, and soy sauce. So carbs, protein, and but very, very simple. I know it's not exciting at all, but that's what I had immediately after each race or each day. And that I'm known to have really bad gut issues running. Knew I had to be really careful with that.
Right.
So simple is good.
Keep it bland,
for me. Yeah. So it was a lot of chicken and rice for like 4 days.
Oh, yeah.
Did not want to see chicken and rice for a long time. But eating that like high protein, high carb, like right after the race, along with some electrolytes and water was, I think, super key to recovering, getting that back in my system for the next day.
Right.
Because that's what a lot of people don't think about, even in training. Like, obviously, Ultraman was an unknown or a new thing for me, having to race 3 days in a row. But it really is no different than 3 long days of training, where you need to think that what you take in today directly affects how you're going to feel tomorrow.
Right.
And if I decide to cut things short today, I'm not going to feel good tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think that is one of those good tips for the people that maybe haven't done the distance before and haven't, had to put together multiple days. That the overnight, the recovery, right? As soon as you finish at the finish line, whatever your drink might be at the finish line, and getting that food into you is all part of the race in an Ultraman.
Yeah, it's definitely something. Nutrition is 100% that fourth discipline. And it's really easy to let it go or forget about that. But I always believe in thinking 1 day ahead. And I think that was key in my success, was just making sure. The thing is, like, the more, like, in order to take in that 400 calories an hour, I definitely had to like gut train. I didn't just all of a sudden do that. I needed to work my way up to that in training. But the more you can take in during that day of training or racing, the less depleted you're going to be. See, it's not like you need to be like gorging yourself
to catch up on
to try to catch up. It's just kind of like you just ride it through and make sure you're getting the right combination of things.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'll make sure to add into the show notes the link to that precision case study as well.
Yeah.
And people can read the numbers for themselves and see what it looked like for you on those race days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll say I overdid the caffeine on day 3, but that's okay. I think I ended up consuming like 3 or 4 cans of Red Bull in the last half of the marathon. So it's a lot of caffeine, but that's okay.
It's the last day. Yeah.
It worked. Nobody needs to sleep after that, right?
No, not at all. As long as you don't have a heart problem, you're good.
Exactly. Knock on wood.
I hope you're enjoying this episode with Jen Annett. It is the first of 2 episodes this month that are featuring athletes competing in Hawaii this year. In my next episode, I'll be speaking with Carrie Mandel from Princeton, New Jersey, and Mark Moody from Bellevue, Washington. I first met Mark in Arizona crewing for Shane Duffy. Didn't know any of the guys on the team on the way into it, but we all bonded very quickly. Mark likes to keep things light when crewing, so I asked him about his costumes that he wears and when he started doing it. Here's a quick clip about what he said. Something you picked up along the way?
Well, no. This is Gail.
Oh, this
is all Gail. Yeah, and Gail has a vision, and it involved me in a pink wig, and we didn't even know each other, but she already had this stuff. She already had this stuff picked out. I don't know what she got the idea that I was going to wear it, but I don't know if you know how you get a you get a buff. You know what a buff is?
Yep.
So I wore the Ultraman buff as a mini skirt with absolutely nothing underneath, and a coconut bra with a pink wig, and ran down the highway towards Shane. And he's on the bike, and yeah, the rest is history. I think that there's a video about that. But no, this is Gail's vision of me, for me, and it kind of, I don't know. It's like why she sees that in me, I don't know, but yeah, it just took off from there. And she wasn't even at Arizona, and she had 3 outfits.
That conversation with Mark and my conversation with Carrie will be part of a special early release just before the World Championships at the end of the month. Now, as we go back to my conversation with Jen, we're going to get into what she hopes to accomplish in Hawaii. Well, I know that in addition to doing the Ultraman Canada, you will be going on to Hawaii this year. And I know that in the past for you, racing in Hawaii with your Ironmans has not always been the best place for you to race. So I'd like to think that you've used up your bad luck in Hawaii, and that when you go there this time, it's going to be all good stuff for you. But maybe you can just give us a little bit of the history of your Hawaii experiences that maybe weren't always the best. I know you got the classic bingo card mark by getting hit by a car when training. So tell us a little bit about what's been going on for you in Hawaii, and then we'll talk a little bit about what you're expecting in Hawaii.
Yeah, it definitely, but apparently I just want to go back because I just haven't, I think the island still owes me something or something along those lines. I don't know. Yeah. I've still got some beef with the with the races there. Yeah, I mean, 2008, I was hit by a car 10 days out of the race. That was my like age group race. I still went and raced, but obviously not in the condition that I wanted to be in. Mm-hmm. 2018 was my very first pro race there, and my electronic shifting shorted out, so I was stuck on the side of the road. I had like the best swim of my career, was in like the perfect group of girls, like everything was perfect, and then I was stuck on the side of the road for 15 minutes with tech support, trying to do something with my bike to make it work. So needless to say, I didn't recover from that. I still finished the race, obviously, but I didn't recover from it. Mm-hmm. 2019, I was hit by a medium motorcycle, about 3 kilometers into the bike on Palani. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, I finished the bike because I'm stubborn.
Good for you.
Well, I basically got a wheel from my husband's bike that like I would have been disqualified anyways because it would have been outside help. But that's not things I was thinking of. But that is the only DNF I actually have in my entire career.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, because I'm stubborn.
It took a motorcycle to take you out.
It did, literally. So yeah, that was 2019, and then 2022, I had a nutrition mishap where my nutrition, for whatever reason, basically coagulated, and it was like it solidified almost in my bottles. Yeah. So I had to go through aid station nutrition, but that was the year that they did men and women 2 days apart. And they were lacking volunteers.
And short and
yes. Yeah. So the aid stations were even further apart. Yeah. So my nutrition went sideways. I still finished, but it still wasn't the race that I was capable of. Right. And then last year I would say overall the race went fine. I just didn't place as well as I wanted to. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's my history of the island. So I'm really hoping for a great race here.
Well, you gotta remember to bring your sacrifice with you. I think maybe that's what you've been lacking.
I don't know. I feel like I sacrificed myself. I'm really hoping for a great race. So
yeah. after that 2008 accident, I understand that you had some other prolonged medical problems that came up after you had that accident. Can you tell us about that as well?
Yeah, so after I was hit by the car in '08, I started having these like kind of like weird dizzy spells. And I went to the doctor, had everything tested, had my heart tested. They basically just boiled it down to like electrolyte issues with
Mhm.
training, and kind of just swept it under the rug, and that was it. And then in 2010, I had a grand mal seizure at work, and was in the hospital. And after they assessed everything and went through my history, they're like, oh, okay, you've actually been having small seizures since this accident.
Oh, yeah.
And it finally manifested into a grand mal seizure.
Mm.
Basically, your brain just was like, okay, now I'm on overload.
Right.
So they gave me the epilepsy diagnosis, and I wasn't able to drive for 6 months. They basically told me like my independence was taken away. They're like, you can't go, you can't swim, you can't have a bath by yourself, you can't drive, you can't, like, can't.
Right.
And that was like, what am I doing? Right.
Mm.
So obviously worked through that. And then I had seizures on and off for a few years there, worked on different medications. I was actually on a waiting list to have brain surgery, which didn't end up happening for a few different reasons, but we have been able to find a medication that works well, that I don't have negative side effects with.
Oh, great.
So I haven't had a seizure in like probably 10 years now. So I would like to say they were short-lived, but I did have a lot of them, enough to actually cause some decent brain damage where it's all memory affected. So my short-term memory is like terrible.
Right.
But it's just something I've learned to deal with.
Yeah. So at that time when you were told that, you can't drive, you can't swim, but you're, a triathlete and you want to compete, how did that go? Like that, there must have been some depression, or there must have been like what am I going to do? Or was it, I'm stubborn and I'm just going to keep doing these things anyway. And if I have a seizure while I'm in the water, well, I had good time. What was your thought on this?
Well, obviously stubborn. But when it came down to it, at that time, Ironman was actually really good, and so were other race organizers, with giving me a different colored swim cap, and in some races even assigning me a person that would keep an eye on me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that worked out really well. All of the lifeguards at the pool were aware of my situation.
Mhm.
So like everybody kind of just made it happen. I would never go open water swimming by myself. In terms of the bike and the run, well, his bike especially, that was just a risk I had to take. The funny thing is, though, is I did not ever have any of my seizures while I was training hard. All of my seizures happened in off season when I really wasn't training very much.
Do you feel there was a connection?
Medically, they can't say that there's a correlation,
Yeah.
but I'm like, how can you argue that I went through this many years of that pattern?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, maybe triathlons just kept me safe.
Some people say yoga saved my life. For you, triathlon saved your life.
There we go. Maybe not. It may have opened a can of worms, but then we just made it work.
That's awesome. Yeah. So going forward into the World Championship this year, I was looking at their website, and it looks like right now there's 19 athletes competing in Hawaii this year, at least according to their website. And you are the second youngest. I don't know if you've taken a look at that.
It's funny that you brought that up. I actually just looked at that like last night or this morning.
I'm wondering, how do you feel yet that your training is going leading into this? Have you learned anything in Canada that you think I can fix this and be better in Hawaii? And should we maybe be looking for an overall female winner this year in Hawaii?
$1 million question.
Tell me, what are your plans for Hawaii? How do you feel you think it's going right now?
Honestly, my plan was just to, like, the race here couldn't have gone more perfect in
Okay.
every sense. If I could duplicate what I did here in Hawaii, that would be like the perfect situation. So I don't have higher expectations. I mean, not to, like, I'm really bad with this, but, like, to toot my own horn, but I kind of set the bar high in Canada.
Yeah, you did.
So,
Yes.
that wasn't really the plan. I don't even know, like, Hawaii is a beast of its own, right? So in comparison, time-wise, that's a really hard one to, like, compare courses with times, especially a 3-day race. So I don't think that necessarily comparing course times is a realistic thing.
No, yeah, that's reasonable.
But in terms of prepping for the race and executing the race, if, like I said, if I could mimic the race here, that would be my ideal situation. So training leading up to it, I am working more than I was leading up to Ultraman Canada. So it's been a little bit more difficult, especially because it's colder and darker here now than it was in June and July here in Canada. So that's been a challenge, but I'm basically just trying to replicate that build.
Okay.
So the whole plan was to kind of detrain actually a little bit after Ironman Canada, just to avoid any chance of burnout.
Right.
Which definitely made the first couple of weeks of building back into Ultraman terrible. But that's kind of the hump, and I'm over it now. So I would say we could just make the same thing happen going into this. I have the same crew coming with me.
That was the other question I was going to ask you is, are you going to be using the same crew?
I am. There is one couple that's not coming, but the main part of the crew is the same crew.
Oh, that's great.
So that's what I wanted, because they obviously know me inside out now. They're really good friends of mine, plus obviously my husband and my son.
Yeah.
So I couldn't ask for anything better than that.
And you've got a lot of people within the Penticton community and within the pro triathlete world that have all raced the Ultraman in Hawaii. So what kind of insights have you got into the course itself and how to attack that particular course?
I mean, I've been to the Big Island a number of times now. The run course, I know like the back of my hand, because it is literally the back half of
you've
the
ridden it
Ironman
enough
bike
times?
course.
Yeah.
The bike, basically, I haven't gotten a whole lot of insight on things, probably because I actually haven't been poking around. It's definitely day one bike is a totally different dynamic. That's a really long climb up into Volcano.
Yeah.
Often
raining.
Yeah, and it's not that warm up there either. That's the thing, right? Like you're at elevation. It's not that warm for being on the island, which is going to make for well, in my eyes, when I think of Hawaii, an unusually cold day 2 start.
Yeah.
And it's a descent, right, all the way, like, for the first bit. And then I know I have been to Hilo before, so I know how completely opposite it is of the Kona side.
Right.
So I do expect some rain, wind, all that stuff. So, I don't know. Yeah, I haven't really gotten a whole lot of insight, but like I said, I haven't really been asking.
Yeah.
I do know for the most part what the course entails. And
Yeah.
sometimes unknown is okay, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you've talked about you're working full time. Sorry, and what is it that you do for your job?
So my husband and I manage a butcher shop here called T-Bones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that must be more than full time, probably, if the two of you are running it together.
Well, I mean, he's been there since day one. He's been there for like 15 years. I've been there for 2.5 years, but not as a manager. I just stepped up into this role like a month and a half ago.
Okay.
So the role is fairly new to me, but it's it it's not it's not that much extra work than what I was doing in the past as an assistant manager. So it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I was going to say was, I mean, you're working full time. You're probably training more than full time. You're raising a child. You've got all the family commitments. Your life is very full, and you have all of the stuff that comes with that. And previously trying to live on your pro triathlete income, I know that these races can get very, very expensive. You had the luxury of having it in your backyard at Ultraman Canada. You were able to sleep in your own bed, as you said. Now you're going to be moving the show over to Hawaii, not the cheapest place to visit and be in. So I know that there's people in your community that have been supporting you. I'm sure maybe this might be an opportunity for you to give out some thanks and some kudos. Tell us a little bit about some of the fundraising that has been happening around your journey, because I know so many people in Penticton really want to support this race for you. And I think there's also like GoFundMe maybe, or there's been other raffles and stuff. Tell us what's been going on.
Yeah, I mean, apparently this was planned before I even crossed the finish line on day 3 here. People were already planning on how to make this work, and Hawaii was never in the cards at all, ever. And it wasn't even on the table.
Yeah.
Mostly just because like last year we're going financially, we shouldn't have even gone last year. And there's just no way that I can make this happen because you've got your crew, you've got like it is Ironman on steroids.
Yeah.
Like it's so I have honestly like a mind-blowing, amazing support group here. It really showed in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
I am not one to ask for help at all. I have a really hard time doing that. I'd rather just say no, not at all, than ask for help.
Right.
And they basically
weren't
I had
accepting that.
no, they weren't at all.
Yeah.
Nobody was taking no for an answer. And I had some friends that are like, come over for dinner and we'll we have some things we want to talk to you about. We show up and there's like 15 people there, and I'm like, is this an intervention? Like, what is going on? And basically everybody there was like, we really want to see this happen for you, and we're going to do everything that we can to make it happen. We tried to brainstorm some ideas, and then one of the girls one of my friends is a marketing person, and she's like, you should really look into a GoFundMe. And I'm like, I immediately said no. I'm like, I just don't like, in my eyes, GoFundMe is just more for people that have had something significant, like a significant loss or injury or illness or like something like that, like a life changing, like, you know what I mean, right?
Yes,
like,
absolutely, yeah.
That's what that should be for, not something like this. And I said I shut it down for probably a good couple of weeks until basically, I don't know, they convinced me otherwise. And I'm like, okay, if you want to like word it like this, I'm okay to like start it. Sure. It's not going to be started by me. It needs to be started by somebody else.
Yeah.
And it was so successful. It raised everything within like a week and a half that we had hoped for.
That's excellent.
Which I couldn't believe it. Just tracking it, I'm like, I can't even look at this anymore. Like, it's just like, so between that and then I've had a couple of local friends make some very large donations, just like personally, and then the Okanagan Falls Barbershop, the guy that owns that, has done a few fundraisers for me over the years to get me to the Ironman World Championships, or to help with that. So he threw together this raffle event, and that was like, that blew my mind away. I couldn't even believe what came out of that. And so basically, like, my friends and family and following are unbelievable. I wish that there was a way that I could repay everybody for what they've done for me. This is not something that I ever expected would be possible. So, I mean, from the bottom of my heart, like, I can't say enough thanks to everybody that has made this happen, whether it was $1 or $1,000 that came in. Every little bit adds up. And honestly, like, yeah, I just completely blown away.
I don't know if they want to be mentioned, but do you want to personally name some of these people to say thanks?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was my crew. There was Shelley Best, Gary Scatchard, Bob and Sandy Vincent, Trish and Glenn Isaac. My coach was part of it. Peter Burns, Peter Beauchamp, who's the barber. He was the one that did the raffle. Dave Michael, Reese Spencer, Dave Matheson was part of it as well. Dave Larson he owns a tire shop here in town. He made a huge donation to me personally. Well, Neil McDonald from Peach City Runners made a huge donation. Brian McCoy from Podium Imports, he made a huge donation and got my flights sorted out for me. Penticton Tri Club, they stepped up and helped out as well for a very large amount. Yeah, Steve and Maria Brown. So Steve, you probably know Steve Brown.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, they made a very large donation as well. Yeah, basically I've got like anybody and everybody behind me with this.
You have the whole Okanagan there.
I do. Yeah. There was a numerous amount of people on GoFundMe that I can't even honestly go through and name. Yeah, and then of course there's everybody that donated to the raffle baskets, which I can't even go there. I don't even know everybody that did.
Well, it really sounds like an amazing community. And I know Penticton and the Okanagan in general has an amazing community and an amazing tri community. And for them to come and support you, it only makes sense as being one of their own and being this new world record breaking 5:15 athlete. You know, they want to see you do the big race. They want to see you get to Hawaii and see what you can do on that one as well. So I'm sure you'll do all of them proud, and you'll finally get your revenge on Hawaii and have the race that you deserve there, because it sounds like the training's been going well and you got the support and you've got the plan, and that's all it usually takes. It just comes down to a little execution and praying that you don't have that bike failure. I mean, that's the only thing. That's the only thing that could. Are you taking a second bike?
That wasn't the plan. I may
take a second bike.
Well, I might just look into the bike shop there at Bike Works and see if I can
borrow
just essentially borrow or whatever a bike for the first 2 days.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You're not going to.
I actually don't have a second bike. I had my coach's bike, backup bike here, which wasn't in great running condition. So No offense, Johnny, but
Yeah.
I mean, it would have gotten me through.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously I'm taking backup wheels and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
I know the bike shop there is pretty good. So
Yeah.
I would hope that I could source something out there if needed.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for squeezing me into what I know is a busy schedule. And I'm glad you didn't do this on your trainer so I could actually hear you. I appreciate that. Thanks for joining us on the podcast, and good luck in Hawaii. I'll be watching and listening for Steve King to call you across that finish line.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This is great.
Hey, if you liked what you heard today, please tell a friend and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We'd appreciate it if you'd rate and review the show while you're there. Drop the names of the people you think we should interview and we'll get in touch with them and make that happen. Thank you for listening to 515, the Ultra Podcast, a production of 55 Enterprises. Now really, go subscribe now before you forget.